Okay. Okay. So good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to ProcureLA module series, Fast Track Your Team to a Winning City Contract. And we are on Module 5. So Module 5 is Mastering the Bid Proposals, looking at the key strategies for RFP submissions. I am from PACE, Pacific Asian Consortium and Employment. My name is Christina. Is Spear 2, and we have been around, PACE has been around since the 70s, well, as a nonprofit as a whole, but the Business Development Center started in the early 90s and has provided business training, technical assistance, one-on-one counseling, and access to capital to many, many entrepreneurs like you. So in addition to being an SBA microloan intermediary and a community advantage lender, PACE is also a certified community development financial institution, or CDFI. We are also a community development entity and an official CalCap lender. And we also house an award-winning women's business center. So just to give you a bit of background of where we are, so we are on Module 5. So we started with Module 1 on how to navigate the City of LA government structure and contracting opportunities. Then we helped to unlock procurement opportunities with the City of LA's RAMP portal. Then Module 3, we talked about certifications in the City of LA for small businesses. And then last week, we had one on crafting marketing strategies to the City of LA departments and prime contractors. And so if you had missed any of those modules, we have an e-library where you can go and find the recording link for all of those. So as I said, today we're going to be talking about Module 5, and then next week will be the last of our module, which is navigating post-bid success, key steps after winning the contract. So today, our guest speakers will teach you how to navigate and actually master the bid proposals. And then next week, it's what happens after you actually get the bid, right? So we will help you every step of the way. So just a little bit of background on ProcureLA. So ProcureLA is a partnership that PACE has along with the City of LA Care Ambassador's office, Mayor's office. And so what we do is we help with free services and resources to equip you with looking to grow through contracting. So as many of you know, there are so many opportunities that are coming to LA in the next few years, right? So we all know about the Olympics in 2028. And then next year, we will have the FIFA, the FIFA
World Cup.
World Cup, yes. And then in 2027, we're gonna have the Super Bowl. As you know, I'm not I'm not a sports fan, so I couldn't even find the word for the FIFA World Cup. So ProcureLA, as I said, PACE is a strong partner of ProcureLA. So from 2021 to 2024, we have served over 370 minority business owners. And we had helped them get awarded almost $12 million in contract and then 66 million in financing capital and bonding. And we have helped in creating over 1,000 jobs. So what are the services that we help with ProcureLA? So it's access to business assistance services, and then we also help you with access to procurement bulletins, such as notifications of procurement opportunities. We do one-on-one counseling sessions where we can help you with bid proposals and submission assistance. We have a lot of access to resources, and then access to workshops like this, workshops and trainings, and also some supplier diversity conference and matchmaking events. Some eligibility requirements to be part of ProcureLA. So you must be a for-profit business operating in the city of Los Angeles. You must have an active business tax registration certificate with the city, and it has to be current and in good standing. You must be operating from a commercial location and have a valid commercial lease. You must identify the negative economic impact resulting from COVID-19, and you must be in good standing with the Secretary of State. So people ask me, so what if I'm not eligible for these? Don't worry, because we have at PACE, we have many different programs where we can help you in procurement opportunities. It's just not through ProcureLA, but we have many different programs. So what I would suggest is either go through procurela.com and then submit your registration, or you can reach out to me later on or to Andrew later on. And then you can reach out to us that way. Just a little bit of information on what we're doing today. So I'm the host, Christina, and then our speakers will be Jenny White from Polaris Marketing and then Andrew Barrera from Pace. So just a couple housekeeping items. Make sure you're on listening mode. So there are two ways to post questions. So you can either do it through the chat or the Q&A. I would prefer the Q&A because sometimes the chat gets a little bit lost and then I may not be able to look at your question. So we will have a little bit of Q&A session towards the end, about 10 to 15 minutes, and then you will get the webinar recordings after this. So please visit our e-library. So I usually send out a follow-up email after this with all this different information. So with that said, I would like to give the floor over to Andrew and Jenny, who will start the presentation.
Thank you, Christina. Nice to see you all. What a turnout. 111 people.
Okay, you can see the PowerPoint?
Not yet. We're still on her. No,
There
we're
you
on.
go.
We need to expand it though, I think, full screen.
Mm. Oops. Let me,
Yeah, so as Andrew's doing that, feel free to, as I said, feel free to introduce yourself on the chat. There are over 100 people here, so make sure you put down your name, your company, and then also the industry that you're in, so we can get to know you and other people can get to know you. Okay?
I'm
That
having
looks
trouble
better.
here.
Christina, do you have it? Do you want to just present it full screen like the way you had it? Oh, it's full screen.
Okay, you can see it?
Yeah. Does it look
Okay.
good to you? Looks like Christina's gone.
I can't see it, but okay.
Sorry, yes, it's full screen.
You can't see which slide it's on?
Oh, I can see it. Go ahead. So let's
Okay.
go ahead. Okay, my name's Andrew Barrera, and I'm the procurement relationship manager here at Pace. As Christina said, we have numerous programs, including the Minority Business Development Agency program here covering all Southern California. We also have a program called GoBiz with the Governor's Office of Business and Economic Development. We can basically serve the entire state, but our primary market here is Southern California. And we have the ProcureLA, and we have other programs as well. So if you don't fit into one, we'll be able to fit you in another program. At this time, I'd like to introduce Jennifer White. She is a client and a colleague. She has great expertise and a partner in helping clients that hire her to scale their business, do marketing, but she also has a high skill level for developing bid proposals. And so she's been very successful on that, and that's why we invited her to come in to speak. And with that being said, go ahead, Jennifer, and take it away.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. I'm Jenny White. So I'm the founder and owner of Polaris Marketing and Consulting, which began 9 years ago as a digital marketing agency, and it's grown over the last few years thanks to groups like PACE, LA Area Chamber of Commerce, and the cohort that they have. We've expanded into government contracting. So not only do we provide your general, marketing services such as website development, SEO, ad campaigns, and lead generation. We also now consult with a fair number of clients that we share with PACE LA that are part of the MBDA program or the Women's Business Center or various programs that PACE offers, and we help with the actual RFP proposal writing. In fact, we're in the middle of, I think I have 5 right now, 4 for one client, 1 for another. So at any given time, there can be 0 or there could be 5 RFPs going on. It just depends on the clients and timing and what's going on in the industry. I'm based out of, I'm a resident of Altadena, California. Been displaced from the fires since those happened, but I'm very much involved with the grassroots coalitions and things that are going on in Altadena, and at the same time, running the agency and providing services on behalf of my clients. So the company is based out of Burbank, but after COVID and everything, we all kind of ended up working from home. So I'm working right now presently in San Antonio. I'm here for a conference, so I'm happy to be still connected to my Los Angeles people, and happy to move on and show you guys what we have in store for you. So Andrew and I are going to go back and forth. Andrew's been a great resource for me and all of my clients. So I can't say enough good things about him. And through the process of working with Andrew on various RFPs, that's sort of the culmination of that process is what you're going to be looking at here today. We're going to go through the differences between a request for proposal versus a request for qualifications. You can see the acronyms after each of them. Everybody speaks in acronyms nowadays. So RFP, SOQ, RFI, RFQ, you know, lots of different abbreviations and things, but don't let it confuse you. It all pretty much just means give us more information so we know about you. And then we'll go through the different delineations under each of those. The difference between a request for proposal is that it's usually getting, you know, they're going to get into really, really detailed explanations. A lot of times when I'm working with clients, one thing that I want to reiterate to everybody that's here is, you know what you do, but nobody else knows what you know about what you do. So what you may think is something that is very simple in the process in which you do any of the fulfillment of your services, it actually requires a lot of detail in terms of explaining in multiple sentences sometimes what that process looks like. And that includes what's right here, right? Your technical expertise, any specialty that you have or any special capability that you have, and then that matching that to what the RFP is requesting for a specific product or service. It gives you just a chance to shine and kind of offer some market differentiators or a different methodology or approach that you might have. Usually the product or service that's being requested, well, sometimes it does not yet exist and sometimes it does. But the point is you have to just read what's in black and white on the RFP, as well as sort of read in between the lines, right? Use your imagination, think about what other people are going to be proposing in response to that. How can you stand out? How can you make yourself look authentic as what you really do, while also answering all of the questions like to the T.
Okay, so let me add to that.
Yeah.
So once you register your business and create a business profile in the various vendor portals, whether it's in LA, it's Ramp LA. With the state of California, it would be Cal eProcure. With the federal government, it's SAM. And remember, private sector companies have their own vendor portals, so it's real important that you get all your NAICS codes. And this is how companies, utility companies, government, when they have they're looking to hire, either purchase commodities or products, or they're looking for a particular service, this is how they announce it, and it'll go through the portal. And so the request for proposal is generally much more in depth. If you're selling a commodity, it's probably going to be an invitation to bid, which is generally a lot simpler. But when it comes to professional services and that, the request for proposal is very robust. Some of them could be as many as 500 pages. Don't get alarmed on that. They're cut into sections. And if you get a hold of us, and we can actually walk you through the RFP and pick out the pertinent, important aspects. And we'll explain that a little bit further. But anyway, so this is the way you want to match what you sell with what they're looking for. And generally the portals they have a bid match component based on the NAICS codes that you put in. And then you can go in there. They're going to be very specific questions. Remember, this is a competitive process. So one size doesn't fit all. We really need to know nuances about your business so we can include it and make you more competitive. Yep.
Details, details, details. I always say to people, more is more. Just tell me more so I can help you stand out. Okay. So the two-step process that we're here on this slide is describing the company or the individual. Usually it's about the company, depending on the entity. Again, so we're talking about RFPs that are from a variety of different sources today, right, Andrew? We're talking government, utility, even private sector. And there's a pretty wide variance depending on the entity that is requesting the RFP. Certainly with County of Los Angeles, we've seen, depending on the entity, anywhere from, 178 pages up to 300. And like Andrew said, sometimes even more, which it's true, right? We always kind of get this like initial shock when we look at like the PDF and the number of pages, but it doesn't mean that that's all the actual document that you have to produce. A lot of times they also include into that their standard contract of what they will submit to the contract awardee. And sometimes those contracts can be, oh my gosh, like a third of the RFP, right, Andrew? They can be really, really lengthy. So usually what you want to do is go through everything initially either on your own or with one of us, and we'll help you kind of figure that out, like he said.
So the request for qualifications, so we talked about the request for proposal. The request for qualifications is you can use it to target market if you're promoting yourself, your company. But the government often uses it to, it's structured in such a way that they're actually looking for people that are companies that have actually performed. There is no substitute for performance. So a request for qualifications is utilized by a buyer because they want to collect proposals from people that have done this work before. There's no substitute for actual performance on former contracts. So the request for proposal is structured in that way that it really showcases companies that have actually done this work before, either exactly right on point or are a similar size and scope. And so that's what the RFQ process generally is about.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so how do we...
Well, let me just take the lead right here. So
Yes, please,
remember, there's two main things when we're putting a bid in, okay? And we got to keep in mind that the buyer is either looking for best value or lowest bid. Now, we saw some proposals recently that were the specs. I was working with a client that's doing point of sale. I didn't realize how technical advanced that technology is. Cybersecurity, be able to report generations, making sure that funds are collected and accurately deposited. It was really amazing. But that proposal was lowest bid. And generally for the higher tech or professional services, it's best value. So you can have a reasonable bid, one of the lower bids, but you really got to showcase that you have the expertise to actually provide the service that they're looking for. So, but keep in mind, even on the lowest bid, they're going to have specs, okay, specifications, what they're looking for in either professional services or in product and commodities, that if you meet the spec because if you can't produce exactly what they're looking for, then they're going to look at you as non-compliant and your proposal and pull the plug on it. So lowest bid, which means you need to understand your industry rates and understand your overhead, okay, and understand what your costs are going to be. And generally, the majority of costs are going to be cost of labor, okay? And so those are the types of things. But you could see, as a former procurement officer, I was looking for unique methodologies. So, right now there's a younger generation of you out there, professionals. You bring in new concepts, new methodologies, new technologies. And so those are some of the things that a buyer is going to look for, okay? A specialized product. Okay, we recently worked on a contract proposal with LA County Sheriff's Department, and it was actually a request for information. But their equipment is antiquated, and they're looking, well, what's out there? What new modern technologies are out there and types of equipment and software that we don't know about, that are in the marketplace at the time. So as you can see here, contracts are awarded based on unique methodologies, unique specialized products, new technologies. They're going to look at your executive management and your key staff, skilled staff. You're going to look at your past performance history. Have you done this work before in the past? Okay, and then like I had mentioned, a competitive budget. So understanding those things. So that's kind of in a nutshell what buyers and decision makers are looking at when you submit your proposal. Okay, so when I had told you that you're going to get your RFP or the invitation to bid or request for statement of qualifications, it's going to go through the portal. And what it is, it's a call to action. It's putting out in the marketplace that we are looking to hire an electrician, or we're looking to hire an event planner, or we need to hire a software developer. So those are the types of, way that government, private sector companies, and the utility companies, that it's a call to action and putting notice to the world, so to speak, that we have an opportunity that we're looking for. Okay. So let's see here. Now, even though it says here at the very bottom, impartiality, the reality is that proposals and people that are making the judgments on the proposals are very subjective. So even though if it's taxpayer dollars or ratepayer dollars, that we need to be open and transparent, but the actual decision, we had a client, Jenny and I had a client that bid on a big $5.9 million contract with the Housing Authority of Los Angeles. And it was 4 opportunities. I think it was 28 companies that bid for 4, and our client came in 5th by 4.5 points. And when we did the debriefing to find out what happened, what went wrong, so we can improve our ability to perform the next proposal, especially with that agency, we found out that some of the text was different font on one part of the proposal and the other. And I think he dinged a half a point there. And then there was some other things on contract compliance that we didn't quite meet. And so that was kind of subjective in the proposal reader's mind and who we put into the short list to qualify. So even though everything's supposed to be open and transparent, the decision making can be very much subjective. So just know that. Okay, so these parts right here is just to let you know that it's an open call. These are some of the general protocols that are involved, when they release opportunities, contracting opportunities that are out there. But we're going to move on a little bit quicker here. Okay, so here's the actual process. So if we look at that, okay, so the RFP process, we want to identify, it identifies the buyer and what they're looking for, either the specific product or service. So generally they do a little history of the department and what its purpose is and who's the end user and why they would need the product, okay? Identify specific product and services to be sought, announces dates, which are very important. You miss a date, that could be non-compliant. We had a client that submitted 5 minutes late. She spent 100 hours on the proposal and she missed the deadline. So dates are extremely important, especially if there's a Q&A session or a mandatory pre-bidders conference. If you miss the pre-bidders conference and it's mandatory, you can't bid. So just keep that in mind. So there's very important things. That's what I have here, the mandatory bidders conference in that. And basically the process is structured to eliminate less qualified businesses and to identify either pre-qualified or the best qualified businesses that you want to do. So that's what the process is about. It's to vet out the competition, make sure that it exactly matches what we're looking for, or is very close. And many times there'll be a bid that goes out and they reject all the proposals and rebid it. So keep in mind, the RFP process is a protocol that's used to try to find the highest qualified vendor, either in product and service or in commodities. Okay. So as you can see, this is just a sample.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Andrew, can we go back real quick to the last slide, just for a second? Thank you. On the submittal of questions for the deadline, so just, I don't know how familiar everybody that's on this is with the whole process, but you actually just reminded me while we were doing this, because we have a client that has a mandatory pre-bidders conference tomorrow, which is the 19th at like noon. And then the submittal of the question deadline is tomorrow, I think at like 5 or 6 p.m. So generally what I do when I go through this with the client is the first thing I look at is that first sort of summary page. There's usually a table within the first, I'd say 5 pages of an RFP, and that will give you the deadlines for everything that is contained within that RFP. The mandatory pre-bidders conference will be one of those. I'll immediately go and calendar it onto my calendar and make sure that my client, me, and whoever else on their team is CC'd on that event so that we know when that conference is. I'll also put on the due date for the final submission deadline for the questions. I'll put that on calendar and CC everybody that needs to be on it, down to the time, right? If it's 6 p.m. on Thursday, February 20th, then I put it on for 6 p.m. and I put an alert the day before, an alert 2 hours before. You have to be the captain of your ship when you're doing this, whether or not you do it on your own or you work with anybody else. You cannot rely, you have to be in charge of knowing what your due dates are, paying attention to your calendar dates, paying attention to what your team is asking you for, and submitting those requests and showing up when you have to show up, because to spend the time to get ready to produce all of this and miss it by a deadline is a total bummer. So I just wanted to say, right, the part that's in parentheses here under the submittal of questions, the third from the bottom, where it says, be sure to read the entire RFP with your team and write out all of your questions and review with your team before submission. You don't want to ask a question that's already answered elsewhere in the document. You do want to ask, I'll give you an example, the one we're working on tomorrow. I create Google Docs, right? And I go through and I look at all the sections and where we have questions and where something may be ambiguous or where it may be contradictory. Sometimes RFPs aren't perfect themselves, but they expect you to be perfect. That's just a reality. This one in particular had an addendum with an exhibit with a specific number, and it gave exhibits, let's say A through, I don't know, T, but it was missing exhibit E. And elsewhere it said that you were required to submit exhibit, addendum A, exhibit, or addendum 1, exhibit E, or whatever it was, right? But there was no exhibit E. So that was one of my questions on, so you have to literally go through item by item and make sure, is it listed elsewhere? Did they mistitle it? Well, we went through everything 180 something pages and it wasn't elsewhere on there. So that's one of my questions. Is exhibit E of addendum whatever required? And if it is, where is it? Will that be submitted to us later? Is it a required document? Those are things you need to know. So you just have to have like a process to go back through and comb through everything and make sure you have your questions ready to be submitted when they're due, before they're due, if you can, but after the conference. So that's usually an opportunity to get some of those questions answered as well.
So in the table of contents, so when I look at an RFP, first thing I do, I look at the table of contents, and it basically, as I said, it explains what the opportunity is. It'll explain what is the department, the company and the department that's looking to hire you or to buy what you sell. And then there's a section of the actual proposal. Okay, it's kind of the scope of services and what they're expecting, how to format it, the sequence that they want you to follow. And keep in mind, it's very important that you follow the protocol. If you can't follow the directions, then that's a client that they're not going to want to work with. They're going to want to work with somebody who could adhere to the requirements and understand. So what we're doing here is kind of taking a step back and looking at the overall proposal. Many times they actually put a sample of the contract that's, that you would be awarded. If you get it, it will be in there. And then the appendix are attachments. And that's where you'll sometimes, especially like with the federal government, sometimes they want you to put everything and there'll be already forms. And it's just a matter of you filling out the forms. So, and then here's another one. So these are just kind of general categories in regards to table of contents, but you want to pay attention to them. And the more that you work on proposals and read RFPs or invitations to bid, you'll start getting familiar. That way they don't look as so onerous and, because even on one that we did, I think we were working one with Ogie, and it was a 488-page proposal for cafeteria services. You figure, why is it so immense? Well, they're cut into sections. And so we can get into that a little bit later.
Yeah.
So here's the checklist. So basically, when we submit a proposal, these are generally the categories that they fall into. So it's manageable. One is you're going to have a cover letter or something they call a transmittal letter. Generally, what you sometimes in that letter, they're going to say you're showing an intent to bid. And that could be a requirement that we're officially bidding on this particular opportunity. So we're giving legal and official notice to the buyer that that will be in the cover letter. Generally, you'll have a description of your company, what you do, your industry, and we want to make sure that we're covering the language. We're speaking their language. Okay, so we want to make sure that we're in sync with them. Experience and qualifications. Okay, I'm sorry. Proposal of the approach to scope of services. So they'll have a list and they'll say, how are you going to approach this particular issue? So how are you going to do outreach? Or if you do software development, what are the steps that you're going to take? So there is where you're going to show your professional expertise, okay, in detail, not just saying that we can do it, but go into detail to demonstrate factually and actually that you can do it. Because that's, as a critical reader of proposals, I want to see that nuance. And like I have a client right now that I'm working with, and they're in tech, and his answers are like, yes, no, we can do it. That is not demonstrate to me in any way that they got the skill set versus another proposer, another bidder that goes into minute detail to really reflect their level of expertise on that particular point within the scope. Experience and qualifications. So like, for instance, we had another client that, I don't know if anybody knows what Six Sigma is, but Six Sigma is a specialty skill that you have to go to school for and get certified. And they got like a white belt, a green belt, and black belt. I think the black belt, they can charge like $1,000 an hour. And they evaluates process from beginning to end, whatever it is, product development, hiring, firing, contract compliance. It analyzes the entire gamut of your business or how a business flows. And this client had a staffer that had a green belt and did not show that as part of their company's qualifications. And that was a big mistake to leave that kind of out. So it's really important that you know your staff or your partners and their skill sets. Because remember, it's you as a united company. It's not just one person dictating. You're a team, and your team is working on this product. So me, as a former procurement buyer, I want to see that. And so we're going to look at your past performance, but I want to see the level of skill level that so like one time, the last contract, I was hired by one of the local cities, and the company made it to an interview. So we're interviewing. And the reality is I didn't really care about the CEO. I did because I see what he built, but I was more interested in the skilled staff that was actually going to perform the service. Because that's what I'm hiring. I wasn't hiring somebody to develop a big company. I was hiring specific skill sets. So that's why it's real important that we're able to figure that out and to know that and have the confidence to be able to recognize we got to put that kind of data out. They'll ask you for key resumes for the staff as well. That's a common. The bid proposal, okay? The bid budget. We got to be competitive, and we need to understand what is the industry standard, have an idea of what the budget is. So on that same company, we had the top candidate came in $900,000 over the budget that we had. I wanted to hire that guy, that company, but I didn't have the budget. So, and he goes, well, if you want to hire us, this is what it is. Well, I'm sorry, I can't take it. But understanding budgets, the department, what does the past budget would look like? Because a lot of times people, they chase the shiny coin and they think, oh, I'm going to make a lot of money out of this. Well, no, if you say we have a client and she's in HR and she went for a contract with LA County and she was highly qualified and she came in second place only by $1,000 because it was lowest bid and that was the only budget that they had. So we have to understand that. We can't just go with what we think. We as professionals in your industry, it's critically important that you understand the parameters of the budget, what is your competition, and then, then we can go from there. Another thing you could see here, financial statements and invoicing. Well, one of the things as part of your infrastructure as a buyer, I need to make sure that you're managing the company's finances prudently. So if you get the contracts, now remember, if you get a contract, you might not get paid for net 60, net 90 days. Do you have enough money, especially if it's labor intensive, to hire all the staff and to get the insurance, to get a bond, to have everything in place until you get paid? So financial stability is a very important thing when evaluating proposals. So it's a risk. Just like you don't know me and I ask you, hey, can I borrow $5,000? You say, well, you look pretty nice and maybe you got a good job, but I don't know you, Andrew. Well, it's a risk. So I can give you my car. I got some jewelry that's worth a lot of money. The point being is that we got to mitigate the risk. And one of the ways to mitigate the risk and to build confidence, that they have confidence in you, is that clearly you can demonstrate through financial documents, okay, that you've been in business for a long time, the company is scaling, you've managed your growth well, you have the finances in place to perform until we start getting paid. So those are all just important factors as part of your business infrastructure to let us know as a buyer that you're contract ready. And that's what basically what this checklist is about, to demonstrate to me, because I have a checklist and I'm looking, at least that you're covering all the basic qualifications to make you attractive. Then you can see addendums. Go ahead.
Oh, I did want to say something too. A lot of times they ask for credit reports, audited financials, and more information than I think some people anticipate. Because a lot of people, when they're starting out in the procurement process, they're just focused on getting registered on BAVN and getting up on the, vendor lists and, getting their certifications. So the certification process is one element. Then you go into the actual submission of all of your information. So a lot of times they do ask for audited financials. Another thing also, when you're just getting ready, getting your company, your firm or your entity ready to propose, when we have on there updated resumes, you might think that's not that big of a deal, but things like this can really throw a wrench in your deliverables, because the last thing you want is to sit there with a team look, if you've worked with the same people for a number of years, you probably have the resume that they submitted to you when you hired them, right? But we're putting you on notice that if you want to start submitting, bids and being competitive, Andrew has a really good point. You are like, and I say the same thing, it's the power of the bench, right? Nobody's a single operator for the most part. We're all parts of teams. And so we want to make our team look as valuable as possible and as capable as possible. So you would be surprised how often when we're going into a new client and submitting a really big RFP and we're stuck on little things that you don't understand how much time this takes. I have to sit down with every single employee and basically re-interview them, or you have to give your employees this as a task, do it now and get it done beforehand. So that you have it at the ready when you want to submit things in a timely manner, because RFPs usually come up on strict deadlines. Rarely do they get extended. Sometimes they do, which is usually like a hallelujah moment, but you're usually like, the minute it comes up, you are under the gun to execute on everything. So keep your time and energy focused on answering the questions that are pertinent within the RFP, not getting all of your, and we're going to get into that, I think, a little bit later about the statement of qualifications and structuring yourself from in a manner that will allow you to propel yourself forward as opposed to getting stuck in a backlog of information that you already could have produced, but you just didn't have it at the ready.
So what, I would like to mention one thing about resumes, that because you're going to include them in your proposal generally.
Mhm.
Let's make sure that you tailor the resume for that proposal. So you had, oh, my person, he could do it. Well, I'm going to tell you the more successful bidders, when they're going after a proposal and they're going to submit your resumes, which in essence establishes your credibility and that you have the expertise and your team has it, tailor it for that particular proposal. That means you're on point. And instead of making somebody kind of have to dig through it and search for the data, you've tailored it already. So I know that resume is matching the skill set that they're looking for. Okay, the cover letter. So we're going to we're taking a little bit more time than we needed to. The cover letter is very important because it officially announces that you're bidding on the contract. In essence, it's a legal document where we're putting them on notice that we are legally binding ourselves to bid on this proposal. Okay, so as you can see here, it identifies your corporate structure. We're a C Corp, or we're an S Corp, or we're a limited liability company. All that detail matters. Okay, I'm a sole proprietor, all that, because maybe I'm the procurement officer and I don't really want a sole proprietor. I'm still going to look at you for your skill set, but maybe I feel more comfortable that you're in a corporate structure, because that just shows a level of business acumen. And so those are some kind of preconceived notions sometimes. But in the cover letter itself, we really want to kind of give a snapshot of who we are and know that we're binding ourselves to an opportunity, and it's going to be signed by whoever can bind the company. Generally, it's the CEO or your chief operating officer, or just you, because you're you're maybe one of all those executive positions. But anyway, so it's real important. Now at the very bottom here, it says you need to acknowledge all addendums. So sometimes during the review process, we find out, oh, we missed something. So like Jenny brought up a little while ago, attachment E. And so we need to make sure that as a procurement officer or proposal manager, a bid manager, when I look at it and I said, oh, we missed something. So we put an addendum to make sure that we're answering that question. But if you do not acknowledge all the addendums, then there's a possibility that the reader will say you're non-compliant, because in reality, whoever's submitting a proposal, I want to make sure that they've seen everything that's associated with this particular RFP. or this opportunity. And so if you turned into something to me that was deleted and you still put it in there, that's not compliance. We really want you to comply exactly on point with what they're asking you to do. So just keep that in mind.
And
Go ahead.
sometimes we put it in the cover letter, and sometimes we also state it. So also what you do is you follow the table of contents to a T. So sometimes you'll have things that, like, you know, how I ask you sometimes, I'm like, I know it's a little bit redundant, but let's also put it in the section under which it falls and acknowledge it again there, right? So we could put it in the cover letter, this is an acknowledgement of the addendum issued on date such and such, title da 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 da, right? So we acknowledge that we were on the platform, we received the update, and we put it in the cover letter, cover it there. But we also might later in the order of succession of the table of contents, as the RFP requests us to submit the information, we may also reiterate it there as well. Just make sure you're saying the same thing each time.
So just keep in mind, so we're going into some really kind of minute details. But look, if you're looking to get a $500 million contract, would be great. But even a $500,000 contract, a $1 million contract, a $100,000 contract, you know, the details matter. So going through the RFP and matching it with what you do and how you're putting your proposal together, that's what's going to make you more competitive. And, you know, if we, you know, you're never going to have a perfect proposal. There is really no such thing. But we've got to be as close to perfect as we can. And that's understanding the different components in the RFP or whatever the instrument they're using to announce what they're looking for to, you know, hire you, okay, contract with you. That's important. So that's why some of the stuff is a little bit like we're in the weeds, but we got to look at it. Because if I'm helping you, or if Jenny's helping you to try to be competitive and get that contract, I need the details. And we run into a lot of clients sometimes, they just kind of don't want to think it through. You know, so that's why it's important to then build a team. You know, make sure you get your proposal team, because everything we're talking about here is business development strategy. So you could be the best engineer or the best event planner or soil tester. You know, of course, that's what they're hiring you for. But the skill set of putting proposals together and business development has to be exactly the same level. Because now we're talking about business management, your business model, you know, how you approach the staff that you hire, you know, the sequence of performance. So all those things are extremely important when you're going for contracts. And if you are short or you don't put the time and attention or the critical thinking skills that are necessary to get that contract, someone else is going to get the contract. Now, I'm not, you know, just know that if you come to us, we're going to help you. We're going to try to identify those nuances and try to make you stand out. But, you know, so like here, we're talking about the description of the organization. Really what you're saying is this is who we are, this is what we do. And here is a very fine detailed explanation of our skill set and how we're going to perform and what our company is about and where our niche is in the market and what our market share is. So those are all kind of important things. So when we talk about description of your organization, we want to put that out there. More information is better. Okay, so maybe we flood it and then we'll tweak it and adjust it down. We might have lost Jennifer because she's out of state. Okay, so then let's move forward into the scope of services. Now this is really the meat. So for me, when I was evaluating an RFP, I would see that it's they're looking for something that I do. Okay, I would look at the deadlines. I would look at the scope of services that they want me to provide, and I'd look at the minimum qualifications. And to make sure, now remember, just because I met the minimum qualifications, I'm not looking to hire somebody that barely makes some minimum qualifications. I'm looking for somebody that has the skill set and that can exceed those qualifications. So when we look at the scope of services, that is really the bread and butter of the proposal, what I am looking to hire you for. So basically, we want to be able to show that we have a clear understanding with what they're looking for, and so like it says here, clear understanding of the assignment and how the buyer is the service that requested from the buyer. So there could also be laws that are involved, depending on the industry. Okay, so like in security and guard security, if you're gonna have armed guard, they have to be licensed. They have to have certain types of legal requirements that are associated with performing the service. Same thing, if you're in the IT world and there's cybersecurity protections that need to be adhered to. So those are all important things to recognize, and they'll be spelled out in the scope of services. Okay, we must be able to show in sufficient detail our company's approach that we can perform. And we want to make it clear. Don't make a bid reader have to dig for information. Make sure that you're clear, concise, that it makes sense, that it matches what we're looking for, okay, and that it's thorough. So sometimes there's no shortcuts. Let's explain it out in detail. Okay, anyway, so as you can see here in the scope of services, when we get to that point, when I'm reading it, I'm making sure that I understand each of the categories, that I have an accurate understanding of what they're asking for, and I'm going to adjust my answers and my response in the proposal specifically and concisely to each of those components or those topic points or data points, if you want to say, okay? Also, it's an opportunity for us to show value added. So, I said, well, I can do that kind of work. All right, well, okay, I did that work. Well, okay, but now I want to see, do you have any special skill sets? Like I mentioned just a little while ago, do you have, you had a Six Sigma professional on your staff? Well, that's kind of state of the art approach. You may have a special kind of technology that you can employ or software that maybe outperforms what they're looking for. This is the opportunity that you look to say, hey, wow, not only do we have what they're looking for, but I got something better. So, those are the types of things that you need to be creative. Okay, you're an artist of your own company. So let's make sure that let's tap into your talent, or if you have somebody on your team who can help bring that kind of stuff out, that's what we're looking for here as well, okay? Okay, experience qualifications. So remember, there's no substitute for actual performance. So if I'm gonna give a $500,000 contract out there, I wanna make sure, because my boss, I have a fiduciary responsibility to make sure that I put forward the best candidates, the short list of best candidates that can perform, and not only what they say they can do, I can do A, B, C, and D, this is how I'm going to do it, but that I could see that they've actually done it. And so there's no substitute for performance. And when I see in your responses that you have the on-point background and past performance and skill set, that's exactly what I'm looking for. So as you can see here, so it's a general description of the company, of your company, range of services and technologies that you provide, unique capabilities and experience that you bring to the table, which we just talked about, executive staff, biographies and resumes. We just talked about that. Okay, but remember, now what we're in the part of the proposal where we're trying to establish our credentials. We don't want them to second guess us. We want to say, look, and we need to show confidence that we have the skill set and we're able to demonstrate it and articulate it. Okay, so we need to help them get a handle of who we are and make it clear. As we talked about key management and staff resumes, higher education is important. Okay, so even though you don't have to have a PhD to perform on this contract, if I see that some of your skilled staff or you yourselves in your resumes that you're highly educated, okay, or that you have special credentials uh, in something that's industry related, we want to see that, and you need to feel proud of yourselves as professionals, because that's how you got yourself to here to some degree. So anyway, educational, any special licensing. So clearly, if you're a general contractor, you're going to have a general contractor's license. Okay, so that, those are kind of important. Or you need to have special permits. When we talked about carrying a firearm, you have to have a firearm permit. So those are all different things, important things that are related for your industry. So just know that. References and experience. Okay, so what's important here? So if they're going to ask you for references, we're not just going to go find my uncle, that really thinks highly of me, or a friend of mine in a different industry. That's not what we're looking for. We're looking for people that know you and that is related to this particular RFP. Okay, so you've worked on $1 million contract in the past in this industry. Well, that would be an excellent reference. And generally, if they're a past client, they can attest to your work product and the skill set and the quality of work that you bring to the table. Those are the types of references that can speak on your behalf. And that's what you want, because it's going to be, we want references based on this kind of proposal and this kind of skill set, and individuals that know you in detail. And there's probably no better reference than a past contract buyer that you work for, or a partner that has a high skill set and is an expert in that particular industry as well. Anyway, so you can see here, we have past notable accounts, and these are some of the things that you could look for when you're looking for a reference. And remember, the reference is extremely important. A reference could be the difference if you get in the contract or not. So if you advise somebody to be a reference for you, you need to let them know, and that they can be contacted. And here's the opportunity that we're going for, and here's the special skill sets that I would like you to address if if you do get contacted, because we're trying to get this contract. And so it's really important that we're effective messengers of what we're looking for, and we're going to pick individuals like that as well. So if they're in the industry and it's related to this particular contract, or to really show that you have a high skill set and you have a high level of performance, that's what we're looking for. Remember, we're trying to mitigate the risk, and we're trying to get them, whoever the reader is, the decision maker, to embrace you and say, I think this is a qualified business. I'm pretty sure I'm going to put them in the short list of top candidates for consideration. But these are the different steps that you got to do, and the critical thinking skills that you need to bring to the table. And I know many times people think, well, I can do it. I can just do the job. Well, so during that last contract, we had a big company, and that was interviewing. They made it to the interview process, and I'm looking at, their skilled staff, and the CEO of the company goes, oh, we've done a bunch of contracts to small cities like this. Believe us, we can do it. That is not at all what I wanted to hear. And one of the other companies that made it to the shortlist to the interview says, well, we understand that your city has tripled in population. You got new travel corridors. You got the green line and the blue line. You've doubled the schools. You have the St. Francis Hospital has doubled in size. We know that the ridership on the buses has increased by blah, blah, blah. That was detailed information that really showed me as the interviewer that client, you really understood, you did your homework, and you understand what we're looking for. So keep in mind, your references, those are the types of things that you want to be able to showcase. Get somebody who can bring that out, okay? And you said credible client references. Well, that's what we've just been talking about. Price proposal. So I don't know, Jenny, you want to add anything here? You're on mute, Jenny. Yeah, you have a bad connection.
Should be off mute, am I not?
Okay, well, let
I
me
keep
go ahead and
switching
move forward.
Wi-Fi.
Okay, well, we're sorry. Let me just move forward. So project budget. Okay, like I had just mentioned a little while ago, sometimes, or when I first started, best value or lowest bid. But even the lowest bid, we want to make sure that we give it to clients that, excuse me, that give a reasonable bid. You know, so like I was talking about that other proposal we had been working on, we had a client that came in $900,000 underbid, one that came 900,000 overbid, and one that came $900,000 underbid. So that showed us that the client did not understand our budget and did not understand the costs that he was putting forward, and he made some assumptions that were incorrect. He thought that we were going to produce buses for them, and they were just going to operate them. That was a transportation contract they were going after. So understanding the budget process and how to effectively develop a budget that's competitive, it could be the biggest difference. Now, you don't have to be necessarily the lowest bid if you really have major qualifications over and above your competition. But keep in mind, when you come to the short list of the top 5, top 3, top 2, any one of those top candidates are going to be able to perform. So showing your business acumen, your financial understanding of budgets, and putting forth a budget and understanding overhead and profit margin and the costs to operate your break-even point, that where you can use that as a baseline to determine the bid budget that you're going to submit to make yourself competitive, is going to be extremely important. So you can see here, so on the budget, so here's some of the things that we look for. Itemized cost breakdown. So we're going to have categories. Okay, now some of the proposals have forms that are broken down for you, make it much easier. And so what's your unit cost? So we had a client that, we just put a bid with LADWP that was looking to revamp all their electric vehicle stations for the entire department. That's a huge contract. Turned out to be, it's going to be a $40 to $50 million contract, whoever gets the award. But they had it broken down year 1 and then 2 one-year options. And so what is the unit cost? You know, so the unit cost for this, and they had a list of specifications, the specific type of equipment that they were looking for. And the unit cost was, let's say, $22,000. And then we need 22 units of that $22,000. And so being able to make sure that your math is accurate and is on point, and that you understand what the different breakdowns in the budget. And if they're in the forms, it's generally much easier. If it's not, then we're going to need to sit down and come up with a template to be able to reflect your cost accurately. Because we're not going to, we're chasing money, but we need to make sure that we're accurate and competitive. So keep that in mind. So when you look here, you know, invoicing rates, billable hours, your cost of goods per month. So when we're putting a proposal together, you know, so let's say it's labor, it's construction. Well, I'm going to have to hire planners in the beginning, architects in the beginning. I'm going to have to do an environmental impact report. I need to hire a company or staff to do that. And then we're going to have the initial groundbreaking, you know, of the ground, earth, maybe demolition involved. So you're going to have different phases. Well, understanding the different phases in the performance of the contract, having a schedule that you adhere to is going to help you. So what is my cost of labor going to vary? What are my cost of goods from 1 month to the next month as you grow? So it depends, you know, if it's a commodities contract, then it just may be a quantity of commodities once a month, and that's going to be a little bit easier. But it was professional services where you're using cost of labor and different skill sets of labor, then we need to understand what are the hourly rates for that labor and how long am I going to use them? They're going to have 100 hours on this contract. So we're actually putting math to units of measure, which could be hourly rates or quantity of products. So understanding what the budget is and the different categories that we need to track are extremely important. Now, right here, I have this thing in red, don't underbid. So when I first came here to PACE, we had a client that had a contract with LA County to generate computer paper, all kinds of different type of computer paper. I think it was a million pieces of paper a year. But she underbid it, or she put a real low bid where she had a really small profit margin because she figured that would get her the contract. But what happens? Her supplier, turns out, raised their prices. And all of a sudden, she lost $15,000 a year on that contract. So it was a 2-year contract. So she lost, it was over $30,000 on that contract. And she was stuck. So we got to make sure that when we're bidding, we understand what the profit margin is. We understand what our cost just to perform the service and what overhead. And then we can, and we can go over that together. You come and you see us, we'll help you put that budget together. So you can see the difference in all the categories. So we can put an effective competitive bid. And I'll guarantee you, your competitors in that short list, they know what they're doing as well. So, you know, so just remember, when you get to that point, you can come. Now, if you have somebody who's an estimator already on your team, excellent. You know, and if you need to go hire somebody that can do that for you, then that would be maybe a service that is well purchased. But anyway, so as you can see here, you also need to make sure. So sometimes if it's a multi-year contract, and you put in a bid, sometimes you got cost of living adjustments. Okay, you got inflation. Just like I told you, the product materials, cost of goods went up. So we need to make sure that, especially if it's a long-term contract, year 1 is not going to be the same as year 5. So, you know, we're going to increase what we think maybe a moderate increase would be 1.5% to 3% a year increase, because that's what we expect our cost of labor or our cost of goods to be. And, you know, or that's what's typical in the marketplace. So, you know, these are the types of things that we need to factor in when we're factoring the bid budget, okay? In market conditions, look what happened with COVID. When the pandemic hit, a bunch of things changed, okay? Inflation went up on a lot of products. You know, people weren't going driving as much. There was just, it had a major impact. So just like my colleague and friend here was impacted by the Altadena fire, that had major impacts on the regional economy and the price of goods and price of where you can live. Well, all of those kinds of natural events happen in the marketplace. And so, you know, a company will go bankruptcy. We have another client, they had a nice big contract with 99-cent store, and he serviced a whole bunch of them. Then the company bankrupt. That's an aspect of market conditions. So, so just keep that in mind. Financial statements. Now, those are very important. If you don't know, I would encourage you to get a more robust understanding of your financials. Because as a procurement buyer, I want to make sure that you are managing your company's finances well, so I can trust that you're going to be able to perform without any problem. So sometimes they'll ask you for a financial statement, a P&L. You know, we want a year-to-date profit loss statement for last year, or we want a balance sheet. And so it's important that you understand what each of those financial documents are and what they represent. So like on a balance sheet, so at the very bottom on a balance sheet, they got a thing called retained earnings. And retained earnings is where you're getting paid on contracts and you're putting it back into the company. That makes me, as a buyer, feel very confident that you're managing your money well. But I could also tell on a balance sheet if you're taking all the money out. And that I don't want to see that either. I want a company that's balanced, a good, prudent business person that understands how to manage their money, because that makes me feel much more confident that you're the type of company that I want to hire. Now, sometimes they'll ask you for CPA prepared audited files. Hopefully, maybe they're compiled or reviewed. Those are less. But like we have a client right now, they're asking, and they were asking for audited. That's the most expensive. So just keep in mind, as you start scaling and you start going for larger contracts, that's what's going to happen. They're going to want to see those kind of financials. So be
And that
prepared.
one,
Okay, we can hear you, Jenny.
yeah, and that one was a 7. You can't hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Can you not hear me?
Oh, we can hear you.
Oh, I said that one was for 7 years.
Oh, the
believe it
last
was audited
the last audit.
financials.
Yeah.
Or no?
Yeah,
Mhm.
so the one that we were working on with another client, they asked it for 7 years of financials. That's kind of the extreme, but
Yeah.
it could happen.
Oh,
And
sorry,
we're-
strike that. No. It was 7 years of past performance for government agencies. It was 5 years of audited financials from 2020 to present. So 4,
So anyways, the
basically.
bottom line on financials
yeah.
is to make sure that you're a prudent financial manager of the business.
Yeah.
Because
So
remember,
I just wanted to give a little bit of warning. So right now we're at 2:15 and there are a few questions on the chat. So maybe we can do 5 more minutes and
Okay.
we'll answer some questions.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay, we're
I know
sorry.
some of them were specifically about audited financials too.
Yeah, and a lot
Correct.
about rates.
Yeah, okay, so let's just move forward.
Mhm.
So anyways, other parts of the proposal is that when we look at it, there's gonna be some administrative and regulatory aspects, on, there could be things like, if somebody gets injured, by your employee, there could be damages clauses that are in the proposals as well. You generally look into the contracts, they explain that out. Okay, let's talk about the evaluation process. Okay, so keep in mind, what they're looking for, here's some major criteria when they're looking to judge a proposal that you're going to submit. Your financial stability, we just spent that time. Your expertise, okay, your experience in the industry. The qualifications of the company. You may have certain types of license, you worked on certain types of projects. Those are all really important. Technical competencies. So remember, technology has advanced so much more. So are you able to submit the reports in accordance to what the buyer wants you to submit your invoices, or your monthly quality control reports, or updates on key staff and other contract compliance components, costs, insurance, and bonding. So these are all the things that are major criteria to make sure that you are a qualified business that we want to give the contract to. As you can see here, here's some of the evaluation points when they look at each of these different categories. You can see, so right here on this particular one, the 2 biggest ones is your past experience of your assigned personnel, 25 points, and your cost. Okay, so, but you can see there's other criteria here that they're looking at. They're trying to vet out the weaker or less qualified candidates and go to the more qualified candidates. Okay, so let's see here. We want to make the short list. Okay, so that's what we're talking about. The goal here is to make the short list. Okay, and generally if you do, you'll get a notice, an official notification. It's more often now, it'll come in the form of an email or an attachment to an email PDF letter notifying you that you made the short list. And the short list generally is from 2 to 5. I have seen some as many as 8 because there are bigger contracts and they could be multiple awards. But that's, but the goal is for us to get to the short list. And then they'll schedule an interview, and which is extremely important. But it's also an opportunity where they say, well, we see that you have this experience. Could you explain a little bit more on your software development skills set? We know that you've done it, but we would like a little bit more information about that. So they're using that additional information to really narrow down, because now we're trying to figure out who's going to get the contract and who we're going to award it to. If you make it to the interview, that's great. That means we are very, very close. And if it's only 3, then it's 1 in 3 chance you're going to get it, and we're going to prepare you for that interview. Generally, it should be just 3, no more than 5 individuals. One of the interviews that we did had 12 individuals, and everybody had one little role, and that was just a little bit too convoluted. We want to show that you are on top of your game. The management, here's the different sections that each one of us are going to address, and it just makes the interviews flow better, shows that you have more of a professional command of how you present yourself in addressing the questions that I have as a buyer. So keep that in mind, okay? Okay. So we're kind of running out of time here. I'm really apologize, because this is a full 2-hour presentation that we're trying to do in less time than that. But the bottom line is, we want to make it to the short list and to be interviewed. Now, if there's a pre-bidders conference that's associated with this, that's an opportunity for you to ask questions to whoever the bid officer is, the proposal manager is, or contract manager. So remember, we're supposed to be experts in our industry. So we already know, based on the scope of services and what they're looking for, and we already have that information. But in the mandatory bidders conference, you can get more inside scoop. Okay, we can get more detailed information that's going to help us be more competitive. And we can also, at the pre-bidders conference, see who our competition is. Or possibly you may even be able to find a joint venture or a subcontract partner that attends those types of things. So, those are very important.
Well, thank you, Andrew. So with that said, are you guys ready to answer some questions? So there's some specific questions on rates, so I wanted to address them before we close off.
Okay.
Okay, so there's a question on is basically, if you don't know what your competition is charging and you're unclear of the city's budget, how do you know how much to charge on your bid to get accepted without lowballing yourself?
Okay, say that again, one more time.
So if you don't know what your competition is charging and you don't know what the city's budget is, how do you know how much to charge on your bid to get accepted without lowballing yourself?
So keep in mind, there's industry standards. So you should know the rates in your industry, what to charge. But a very good business practice is if you can get your hands on the former proposal or the former contract. Okay, and you can do that if it's the federal government, it's the Freedom of Information Act. Otherwise, it's the Public Records Act. And, so if I know that we're going to come up, we're going to bid on a contract, I'm going to put a request under the Public Records Act for a copy of the winning proposal, which would include the winning budget, or the past awarded contract, which will also have that rate. But keep in mind, there's industry standards in your industry, and your rates could be, so back in the day when I was doing public policy advocacy, our rates roughly were about $200 to $250 an hour. in order to be competitive, based on our partners and our business situation, we were able to drop it to 175 an hour. And we still had a decent profit margin, and we ended up getting the contract. And so on your industry, there are standard rates, and you could kind of look those up from time to time. I know, like the Department of Industrial Relations, they sometimes set rates as well. Those are more hourly rates per staff, you know. But you could also look at what is overhead. So overhead would be your cost of insurance, the cost to have a storefront, So generally the standard would be overhead should be no more than 3%, maybe 5%. But remember, the higher those costs are, if you can't spread them over other contracts, you're going to be at the higher end of the bid proposal budget. So generally, like government, like the feds, sometimes will just tell you straight out, nothing over 12%. That's what it's going to be. Here's the budget, and it could be a 12% cap. So everybody put 12%, well, I'm going to tell you, probably the person that's coming in at 8.5% and is qualified, they're probably going to get the contract. So we got to figure out strategies, but understanding your industry, what is the going rates? If you got network or somebody in your network, or even a potential rival that you can talk with, say, well, what did you charge on that contract? What are you charging your people? So that information is extremely important. So we got to do our research, and we got to be prepared.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Andrew. So there's a question for commodity contracts for specific products for resellers. What profit margin do you recommend?
Well, it's going to depend. Okay, if it's cutting edge technology, that's going to be higher end. We had a client that worked on healthcare equipment and monitoring systems, and at one point he thought, he goes, well, in technology there is no cap. Well, that's not true, because especially if it's government, they got a limited budget. But if it's cutting edge technology and we can showcase that, and that what is the return on the investment to the buyer, that even though they may pay a little bit more, at the end of the day, they're going to get a more efficient product or service that's going to increase our efficiency. So those are kind of the things that go into when we're fixing a budget and moving forward. So these are nuanced checklist things that we want to put forward.
Okay. And what is your recommendation regarding providing pricing as a subcontractor on a bid?
Well, so if you're a prime contractor, or there's a prime contractor that invited you to bid, we know that we want to look at what is the overall budget. And so what a prime contractor will be looking for quality subcontractors that can perform. So let's say they're looking for, well, let's just use an engineer, that a mechanical engineer, and that could come in and fix the equipment throughout maintain the equipment throughout the duration of a 4-year contract. So they're going to look, what is your hourly rate? Okay, they're going to look at all the other things too, your insurance, your skilled staff. But when we're talking a budget, I have an idea that I want to pay that subcontractor $150,000. That's what I have specific, and we can ask the prime contractor, what is the range that you're looking for? And so in your industry, when you start interacting with prime contractors, you're going to start seeing a pattern. So you need to start tracking your rates, okay? And with those performances, let me do this. With your competitors, and start tracking that. So we know that in our industry, we're confident that the range of rates is $100 an hour, $150 an hour, A contract of this size is a $50,000 contract or a $200,000 contract. You're going to start seeing that. So we need to start tracking those types of things when government, utilities, and the private sector. Now, private sector is a little bit more open. Sometimes you can increase your profit margin. It could be higher. As long as you're bringing, you can show a return on the investment.
Okay, well, we have a last few minutes, and I know we have a few more questions.
Okay.
But what I'm gonna do right now is just put our information down, just to make sure that we get everything right. So if you wanted to go and look at the last module, so module 6 will be next week, and then Andrew will be a part of the panel as well. So then this next week's panel would be after you've done all you can to bid on the proposal, and if you actually want it, what will be the next step? So that would be a really good one to attend. So if you wanted to go and scan the QR code and then register for that one. And then a couple things I also wanted to mention on the chat. I know there seems to be a lot of networking going on with the chat on doing a proposal group, which is great. So I think it must have been Jared is starting a proposal group side chat, right? So that's great. So feel free to. I'm gonna try to save the chat and see if I can do that and send it to you guys. And then with that said, this is my contact information. And then Andrew, if you can put yours on the chat as well. And then Jenny, I know you had put down your information, but I will go ahead and send a follow-up email after this. I know there are a lot of questions that we didn't get to. So we will try to get to this after
we went
with the
over.
follow-up.
So this
No
presentation,
problem.
the presentation was really for a 2 hour. We were trying to run through it. There's so many nuances, but keep in mind, we want, if we're going after contracts, we need to understand what the general protocols are. There's not one proposal that meets all different types of contracts. I'll see within the city of LA, different departments put out different RFPs, and they request different types of things. But it's understanding procurement, the general protocol at large, understanding where we can source the contracts, have a better detailed understanding of what the RFP or RFQ or invitation to bid process is. What are the components? What do we need to address? Do we meet at least the minimum qualifications? What else can we bring into the table to make us more competitive? So it's providing the service, having a competitive bid, being able to do contract compliance if you get it. And what does that represent? So it really means lifting your game a little bit, understanding the protocols, understanding business development strategy, and those components. So even though we didn't cover, we only covered about half of what we really wanted to, you could come and see us. And if you ever get a request for proposal, we can go run through it with you. And if you want to hire somebody to write it for you, we can't write it for you. Jenny from Polaris, that's one of her areas of expertise that could help you, and we could still be a part of that team. But if you feel confident that you're able to
That's
write,
what we've.
go ahead. Good, Jenny.
Mhm. Oh, I was just gonna say that's something I clarify a couple things for people that have asked questions. So I do run a marketing agency, but I think that's what makes me, I kind of bring together my background as a paralegal, legal writing, into this contract writing approach, along with the blend. I marketed at this point. I mean, I've owned my agency 9 years. I've been doing marketing for 10 years before that. So you're getting a compound effect of my marketing agency expertise and me being able to brand and patch you in not only a very persuasive way, but a technical way, alongside of what Andrew and the resources that, not even just beyond Andrew, what we've used in addition to what PACE has with leveraging other organizations with their reach. So it really is a great way for you to divide and conquer on RFPs when you want to start to gather your information and put your best foot forward. We really have, in fact, every single we've put into in a response in the last 3+ years, every single one has been shortlisted. So plus we've won. So it's a great use us as a resource. Like I said, like Andrew said, I do the writing, but certainly we are able to review everything with a fine tooth comb. I know a lot of people were asking for sample proposals. You really want to be able to find those ones from the Freedom of Information Act that are
Oh,
Yeah, I think we lost her.
yes,
But
it's okay.
if we
Well,
can get our hands on the former winning proposal, because it's public information, if it's taxpayer dollars, we can get it. And that way we could see how the company formatted the proposal, their bid
mhm.
budget, give us some ideas, how we can perfect ours. And we're always trying to do best business practices, tweak it to do better and better and better. So we understand and we can be more competitive. And
Yep,
we've had a
yes,
pretty good success rate here
yep, and
in awarded contracts.
yeah, and thank you so
sorry.
much, Andrew, and Jenny, if you want to just say, yeah, I know that you got cut off. Oh, yeah, she got cut off again. So, but it's okay. So what I'm gonna do after this is I'm just gonna wrap things up, and then we're gonna send a follow-up email with all our information, mine, Andrew's, and Jenny's as well. If you have any other questions, the recording will be on ProcureLA.com, and then if you wanted to register again, also go to the website and then put down your information. And as I said, if you do not qualify for ProcureLA, we have many, many other different programs that you'll be eligible for. We can put you somewhere with regards to procurement. So thank you so much, everyone. Have a good rest of your afternoon, and hopefully we'll see you next week.